Before Bill Russell ever blocked a shot or raised a championship trophy, he was just a lanky, quiet kid from West Monroe, Louisiana. Born on February 12, 1934, Bill came into a world that didn't roll out red carpets, threw up roadblocks. Growing up black in the Jim Crow South was like playing life on hard mode. And Bill learned early on that survival required more than just strength. It required resilience, wit, and an iron will. His father, Charles, was a hard-working man who refused to accept less than dignity, even when the world demanded it. One of the earliest stories in Bill's life is about his dad walking away from a gas station that refused to serve him on foot, 30 miles, just to protect his pride. That same spine would later show up in Bill in and off the court. When Bill was 8, the Russell family packed up and moved to Oakland, California, in search of better opportunities. It was a shift from the deep South to a slightly less deep form of racism. Life still wasn't easy, but at least the ceiling was a little higher, and Bill, he was about to jump. Here's the thing. Bill Russell wasn't exactly a basketball prodigy. As a teenager, he was awkward, uncoordinated, and, by his own admission, a mess on the court. His high school coach even cut Bill Russell from the junior varsity team. Ouch. But here's where the story takes a turn. See, Bill had a secret weapon. He didn't give up. He studied the game. He studied other players. And then he started jumping. Not just jumping, high-timing his jumps. Watching how opponents moved, blocking shots, not because he was taller, but because he was smarter. Slowly but surely, the awkward kid turned into a defensive nightmare. By his senior year, he was dominating high school basketball. Not with flashy dunks or smooth jumpers, but with effort, intelligence, and a whole lot of grit. That caught the attention of the University of San Francisco, one of the few schools willing to take a chance on a raw, unpolished player with a chip on his shoulder and a brain that never stopped working. And oh boy, did that gamble pay off. At USF, Bill Russell exploded onto the national scene. He led the team to 2 NCAA championships in 1955 and 1956, racking up rebounds and blocks like they were going out of style. Opponents dreaded seeing him, turned defense into an art form. While others were trying to score, Bill was out there building walls. But it wasn't all glory. Bill still faced relentless racism as a college star. He often had to stay in different hotels than his teammates. He was heckled, jeered, and disrespected in cities he helped bring wins to, but he never backed down. In fact, the more they booed, the harder he played. And then came 1956, a year that would change his life forever. Bill was drafted by the St. Louis Hawks, but there was a catch. The Celtics wanted him, badly. Red Auerbach, the Celtics' legendary coach, saw what others didn't, a player who could anchor a defense like no one else. So Boston pulled off a trade to land Russell, and with it, they kicked off the most dominant run in sports history. But we'll get there in the next chapter. For now, just picture this. A once awkward kid from Louisiana, now standing on the cusp of greatness. Not because he wanted to be a star, but because he wanted to win, because he wanted to change what was possible for himself, for everyone watching. When Bill Russell arrived in Boston in 1956, he wasn't walking into a dynasty, he was about to build one. And if we're being honest, Boston wasn't exactly waiting with open arms. Sure, they loved basketball, but the city had a complicated history with race. And Bill, never one to fake a smile, wasn't interested in playing nice to make people comfortable. What he was interested in? Winning. Plain and simple. And lucky for him, the Celtics, he had a coach who felt the same way. Red Auerbach, the cigar-smoking basketball wizard. On Bill, not just a tall guy who could block shots, but a game changer. Someone who could anchor a team's defense so tightly, opponents might as well try shooting in the dark. From the very start, Bill didn't care about points. He once said the only important statistic is the final score. Let the guards take the spotlight. He'd take care of the gritty stuff. Blocking shots, grabbing rebounds, diving on loose balls like they were made of gold. And what happened? Oh, just a little thing called 11 championships in 13 seasons. Read that again, 11 championships. In 13 seasons, that's not a career. That's basketball colonization. But here's what made Russell different. He didn't chase glory. He chased greatness. His teammates respected him, not just because he could jump out of the gym, but because he led like a general. Quietly, firmly, always holding the standard high. He went to war with guys like Wilt Chamberlain, 7-foot scoring machine who once dropped 100 points in a game. Wilt was a showman. Bill, a strategist. Their rivalry was like Ali versus Frazier, with shot blocks instead of punches. Fans loved it, the media hyped it. But behind the scenes, they had mutual respect. Bill even delivered a eulogy at Wilt's funeral years later. Through the late 50s and all through the 60s, Russell's Celtics were the team to beat, and most teams didn't even come close. He brought an intensity to the court that felt personal. Losing wasn't just disappointing, it was unacceptable. And then, in 1966, something extraordinary happened. When Red Auerbach retired, he handed the team not to a flashy coach or some rising assistant, but to Bill Russell himself. That's right, Russell became the first black head coach in major American sports while still playing. Imagine trying to block shots and draw up plays, lead huddles and defend the paint, be the team's anchor and the captain of the ship. Most people would have crumbled under that weight. Bill, he won 2 more titles, but it wasn't easy. The pressure was enormous. The racism in Boston never really let up. Vandals once broke into his home and trashed it, writing hateful messages and destroying personal belongings. Imagine dominating for a city that cheered your wins and still made you feel like an outsider. Russell didn't stay silent. He stood firm, refused to sign autographs, refused to pretend things were fine when they weren't. He wasn't there to be anyone's mascot. He was there to win and to show that dignity matters more than popularity. And despite all that noise, he kept winning. When he finally retired in 1969, he didn't go out with a whimper. He went out with one final ring. The Celtics beat the Lakers in the finals, and Bill walked away as the most decorated winner in basketball history. He didn't take a farewell tour, didn't bathe in the spotlight. He slipped out the side door with his principles intact and a trophy under each arm. Because for Bill Russell, greatness wasn't about applause. It was about impact, about doing things the right way, even when it's the hard way. And as the NBA moved into the flashy, high-flying era of the 70s and 80s, Bill stood as a reminder. Real champions don't just play the game, they change it. When Bill Russell walked away from basketball in 1969, he didn't just leave the court, he left behind a dynasty so complete it felt unfair. 11 championships, 5 MVPs, 2 titles as a player-coach. It was like he won the game of basketball and then quietly put the controller down, undefeated. But retirement? That was just Act 2. Bill Russell didn't vanish. Reappeared not in sneakers, but in suits, speaking boldly, mentoring deeply. I'm still watching basketball like a chess master eyeing a board. His voice got quieter in volume, but louder in purpose. For a time he tried broadcasting, and let's just say, it wasn't his favorite gig. Bill was never big on sugarcoating or small talk, and sometimes his brutal honesty hit the airwaves like a cold splash of water. One time, he told a sideline reporter her question was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. On live TV, classic Russell. Always direct, never fake. But it wasn't just about basketball anymore. Off the court, Bill Russell became a powerful voice for justice, dignity, and equality. He marched with Dr. King. He supported Muhammad Ali when others turned their backs. He spoke out when it was dangerous to do so, and he didn't care if it cost him fans, endorsements, or comfort. He was always more than an athlete. He was a man with a spine made of steel and a heart that refused to settle for silence. In a world that begged him to just smile and play, he chose to stand and speak, and it mattered. Over time, even the places that once rejected him began to embrace him. Boston, once a city of gears, eventually honored him with statues and standing ovations. Fans began to understand what Bill had stood for all along. Not just rings, not just wins, but respect. For the game, for people, for justice. And he kept giving back. He mentored players quietly, behind the scenes. When younger generations reached out, he picked up the phone. When someone needed advice on leadership or how to carry yourself with integrity, Bill Russell was the guy you called. Didn't ask for attention, but it found him anyway. In 2009, the NBA named its Finals MVP trophy after him. It was poetic, really. The man who defined winning now defined the award for clutch greatness. When players received it, They did so in awe because Bill wasn't just a name on the trophy, it was the standard. Then in 2011, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama. And even then, standing beside astronauts and poets, the president said it best. Bill Russell, the man, is someone who stood up for the rights and dignity of all men. He didn't cry. He didn't boast. He just nodded with that familiar Russell look, that mix of humility, pride, and the faint suggestion that, if you tried to hug him, you might get blocked. In his later years, Russell remained a present, quiet, towering, and deeply respected. He appeared courtside once in a while, always in a cap, always smiling that half smile like he knew a secret about the universe the rest of us had done, too figured out yet. He passed away in July 2022, at the age of 88. The news hit the sports world like a silence rolling through an arena. Tributes poured in, from LeBron to Steph to every old-school legend who ever laced up sneakers. They all said the same thing. Bill Russell made it possible. He made them possible. And that's the thing about legacy. It's not in the rings, though he had more than anyone. It's not in the trophies, though they named one after him. It's in the way he played, the way he lived, the way he refused to shrink. Bill Russell was never flashy. He didn't chase highlights. He didn't go looking for applause. But he changed basketball, the world around it, by simply being himself. Uncompromising, unafraid, unmatched. Thank you for joining us on the journey through the life of Bill Russell. If his story inspired you even just a little, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Because the world needs more stories like his. Stories of strength, of quiet courage, of standing tall. Even when the world wants you to sit down, Bill Russell didn't just play the game, he changed it. And somehow, even when he's gone, he's still out there, blocking injustice, grabbing respect, and tossing dignity into the rafters where it belongs. Until next time, keep standing tall.